Right now, as you watch this, an encrypted data packet just crossed the Atlantic. It carried authorization for the transfer of $80 million. The funds originated from a cartel-controlled mining operation in Sinaloa and landed, perfectly washed, inside a high-yield trust in Geneva. No alarms triggered. No federal agents kicked down a door. The entire transaction was stamped, verified, and approved by the international banking community. Why? Because the global financial system isn't broken. It is functioning exactly as designed. To erase an illicit fortune, you don't fight the law. You simply drown it in an ocean of immaculate, impenetrable paperwork.
If you ask a federal prosecutor how to stop a syndicate, they'll talk about border patrols, wiretaps, and seizing shipping containers. But borders are for poor people. The real cartels don't smuggle cash. They hire men in $5,000 suits to wrap their blood money in so much corporate bureaucracy that it becomes mathematically indistinguishable from a Fortune 500 quarterly dividend. Let's examine the anatomy of a financial ghost. The innocence pivot.
The genesis of a master launderer rarely happens in a dark alley. It begins in the sterile, fluorescent-lit corridors of a Big Four accounting firm. We will call our subject the architect. At 23, he holds a degree in forensic accounting from an elite university. His official title is Anti-Money Laundering Consultant, or AML. He is the institutional hunter. He spends 80 hours a week staring at terminal screens, conducting compliance theater to keep the regulators at the SEC pacified. He tracks structuring. These are the low-level street dealers depositing $9,500 every morning to avoid triggering a currency transaction report under the Bank Secrecy Act. He hunts for KYC violations. Know your customer. He flags shell companies with zero physical employees that suddenly receive a $200 million wire for strategic consulting.
But the architect soon confronts a deeply disenchanted truth. The banking system is designed to look like a fortress, but it operates as a toll booth. For every red flag the compliance department catches, the executive board quietly suppresses 100 others. The transaction fees generated by dark money are simply too lucrative to reject. Late one evening, the architect isolates a devastating anomaly. A $2 million discrepancy involving a senior partner and a private equity firm in the Caymans. He writes the suspicious activity report. He thinks he's a hero. He anticipates a promotion. Instead, the senior partner summons him into a corner office. He doesn't fire him. He doesn't yell. He slides a heavy, unsealed paper envelope across the mahogany desk. He instructs the architect to reconcile the entry as a localized software glitch. Inside the envelope is $50,000 in crisp, uncirculated fiat currency. It is more than half of his annual salary, awarded for one single click of a mouse. The architect looks at the cash. He looks at the partner's impeccably tailored suit. He realizes that the rule of law is merely a tax applied to those who cannot afford plausible deniability. He takes the envelope. The system just successfully incubated its next apex predator.
The smurfing protocol. The architect resigns from the Big Four exactly 1 month later. He understands that international banks do not want hunters. They want architects. He begins his independent practice at the foundational layer of the underworld economy. His first legitimate client is a local syndicate lieutenant suffering from a massive cash drag problem. The client possesses $10 million in small, dirty, circulated bills sitting in a climate-controlled storage unit. He cannot spend a single dime of it without the IRS initiating a devastating forensic audit. The architect deploys the smurfing protocol. He hires 150 runners. These are desperate university students, gig workers, and retirees who urgently need an extra $200 and possess zero curiosity. He provides them each with $9,000 in cash and a highly coordinated matrix of 5 different regional bank branches. They walk in, make a deposit, and walk out. Because every single deposit is strictly kept under the $10,000 federal threshold, the automated alerts are never triggered. The money remains completely invisible to the algorithmic watchdogs. By Friday evening, the $10 million is sitting cleanly in 150 different accounts, ready to be consolidated. It is tedious. It is manual, high-friction labor, but it is flawless. The architect takes a flat 5% cut. He is 25 years old, and he just generated $500,000 from his laptop, while federal agents were busy X-raying shipping containers at the border. He learns the fundamental axiom of the shadow economy. The government cannot stop what they cannot see, and they are utterly blind to the mundane. Trade-based laundering.
Smurfing is a blunt instrument. It requires too many people, too many physical movements, and leaves too large a surface area for failure. To move 9 figures, the architect must weaponize global commerce. He transitions into trade-based money laundering, or TBML. This is the domain of the disenchanted architect. He relocates his operations to a tax-neutral jurisdiction in Dubai. He constructs a labyrinth of shelf companies, corporations that have existed on paper for 10 years, possessing immaculate credit histories, but have never conducted a single day of actual business. They are staffed by nominee directors, residing in the British Virgin Islands, individuals whose sole profession is signing legal documents and immediately forgetting they ever met him. The architect engineers a circular invoicing scheme. Company A is a registered electronics exporter operating out of Hong Kong. Company B is a tech distributor located in Miami. The architect controls both entities through 5 layers of offshore trusts. Company A ships a cargo container to Company B. On the official customs manifest, the container holds $10 million worth of proprietary high-end microchips. The microchips do not exist. The shipping container is filled with literal, worthless scrap metal. But the invoice generated by Company A is entirely real. Company B pays the $10 million invoice using the dirty, cartel-sourced cash that has been slowly integrated into local shell accounts. On paper, the transaction appears as a routine, legitimate international trade. The $10 million arrives in Hong Kong, instantly reclassified as clean, taxable export revenue. It is now perfectly documented and fully integrated into the global economy. Customs officials are too preoccupied searching for narcotics and weapons to care about the inflated price of microchips. The architect realizes that if you want to hide a colossal lie, you simply wrap it in 10,000 pages of excruciatingly boring paperwork.
The provenance fixer. The capital flow is now astronomical.
His clients are no longer street-level syndicate lieutenants. They are high-net-worth individuals possessing immense political leverage and sovereign immunity. To service this elite tier, the architect pivots into the least regulated market on Earth, the art world. He understands a fundamental truth about fine art. A painting possesses no inherent fixed value. In the eyes of international law, a piece of canvas is worth exactly what two people agree it is inside a very quiet room. The architect purchases a piece by an obscure, mid-century artist for $10,000 in cash, funneling it through a small gallery he secretly underwrites. He then waits a year. He retains a provenance expert, a disgraced academic with a severe gambling debt, to manufacture a completely fabricated history for the painting. The expert produces documents claiming the artwork was previously owned by a minor European noble before vanishing mysteriously during a war.
The architect consigns the painting for auction in London. A separate shell company, entirely controlled by the architect and based in Singapore, bids aggressively on the piece, eventually purchasing it for $15 million. The funds transfer from a non-cooperative jurisdiction directly into the prestigious, unassailable escrow account of the auction house. When the auction house cuts the final check to the architect's original holding company, the money is officially classified as art appreciation profit. He has just successfully laundered $15 million through a stretched canvas and a few ounces of oil paint. He purchases his first Patek Philippe perpetual calendar. It costs $150,000. He doesn't feel a sense of triumph. He merely feels that he is finally wearing the correct uniform for the high-stakes boardrooms he now dictates. The shadow banker. By this stage, the architect ceases to be a mere accountant. He ascends to the status of a financial ghost. He masters the apex mechanism of wealth transfer, mirror trading. He relocates to Zurich, integrating himself with a mid-tier Swiss bank that is desperate for liquidity and heavily incentivized to bypass traditional KYC protocols. He engineers a closed-loop system for clients who need to move massive, heavily sanctioned fortunes out of hostile territories. A Russian oligarch places an order to buy $50 million worth of blue-chip corporate stock in Moscow, paying entirely in rubles. Simultaneously, a shell company registered in London, controlled by the exact same oligarch, places an order to sell the exact same amount of the identical stock, receiving payment in euros.
The two trades mirror each other perfectly, neutralizing any market risk. The ultimate result? The value has been instantly teleported from Russia to the United Kingdom. It never technically crossed a border. It was never processed through a traditional foreign exchange. The audit trail is a perfect, impenetrable circle that leads directly back to itself. The architect is now moving $200 million a day. He is the invisible infrastructure that makes the billionaire class possible. He resides in a sprawling Manhattan penthouse with floor-to-ceiling glass walls. But he has stopped looking at the skyline. He spends his evenings staring at the reflections in the glass, analyzing the body language of his own private security details. He calculates whether the man pouring his wine is a servant or a cleaner, contracted by his own clients to ensure his silence. He realizes that the golden cage is still a cage. It simply possesses a higher thread count on the sheets.
The collapse does not arrive via a dramatic FBI raid or a flashing siren. It arrives via a silent KYC update notification. A major correspondent bank in London, the architect's primary processing hub, appoints a new CEO tasked with optimizing the balance sheet ahead of a massive merger. The bank quietly hires a team of forensic blockchain analysts. They utilize advanced AI scraping tools to map out circular transactions. The algorithms find the Miami tech distributor. They find the sudden surge in art appreciation. They unravel the mirror trades.
The analysts do not alert Interpol. They do not contact the authorities. They contact the architect's original handler, the senior partner from the Big Four accounting firm who handed him that first envelope of cash 15 years ago. The partner requests a meeting at a quiet diner outside Zurich. He is older now, his suit even more bespoke, but his eyes carry a cold, clinical deadness. He informs the architect that the global regulatory climate is shifting. He states that the sovereign risk associated with the architect's network has surpassed acceptable margins. He calls him an expensive liability. The architect finally grasps the ultimate rule of high finance. You are never a partner. You are merely a non-core asset. And your schedule for liquidation has just been approved.
The architect retrieves his go bag, the one that has sat untouched in a hidden floor safe for a decade. $10 million in cold wallet cryptocurrency, 6 biometric passports under 6 distinct identities, and a set of coordinates for a sovereign territory lacking an extradition treaty. He is out the door in exactly 60 seconds. He is sitting on a private, sun-bleached beach in Montenegro, staring out at the calm, azure waves of the Adriatic Sea. The air is warm. The silence is absolute. He possesses more liquid wealth than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. And he is more profoundly imprisoned than he ever was in his corporate cubicle. He realizes that disappearing was the most devastating lie he ever sold. He didn't erase his past. He merely made it the only thing he has left to converse with. He looks down at his hands. They are immaculate. No printer ink, no charcoal stains. But they refuse to stop shaking. He is the wealthiest ghost in the cemetery. He is entirely safe, utterly sound, and he has never been more aggressively visible to the men hunting him. He understands now that the golden cage does not require iron bars. It only requires an endless supply of expensive whiskey and the terrifying silence of a phone he cannot answer.
Somewhere, an alert is flashing. A syndicate needs a magician. And you are the only one who truly knows the price of the illusion. You have reached the final level. You are the architect of the invisible, and you are currently trapped in the dead center of your own blueprint. If you want to know how a hidden database is controlling 25 million lives, you need to examine this file.